آل محمد وبركاته. I want to have a brief discussion, if you allow me, on Salatul Jama'ah, some of the rewards of Salatul Jama'ah and some of the recommendations regarding Salatul Jama'ah. And then I'll have it very brief, and then we'll have open session of Q&A on various topics if you have questions, so we can have more of a discussion time. Before I do that, if I can ask the mothers to use the mother's room. In all languages. Well, I don't know all languages. I know few. Inshallah. الأمهات رجاء إذا الأطفال عندكم تأخذوهم إلى غرفة الأطفال. مادران اگر بچه های کوچیک هستند و احتمال مزاحمت برای دیگران باشه ببرن اتاق کناری، اتاق خواهران. French, s'il vous plaît. Okay. Inshallah. So a little bit about the rewards of Salatul Jama'ah and the importance of Salatul Jama'ah. And I'll be very brief, inshallah. There is one narration that really strikes me as very, very good news and very rewarding and very much precious, in fact, regarding Salatul Jama'ah, which says that those who pray Salatul Jama'ah are 25 stages higher than those who don't in Jannah. Those who pray Salatul Jama'ah are 25 stages higher than those who don't in Jannah. So some of us, in fact Imam Baqir alayhi salam says, for our followers, I am not worried about them making it to Jannah, rather about their status in Jannah. Many of us, we think it's all about making it to Jannah. The reason why the day of judgment is known as Yawmul Hasra, the day of regret, is because it is then that we will realize what we missed out on. It would be then that we realize that I could have achieved a higher level which I didn't, and it was very simple, by doing some very simple things. It wasn't, as we call it here, rocket science. Very simple, following simple teachings and simple rulings, traditions. One of them is this Salatul Jama'ah. According to one narration from Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, Radwanullah ta'ala alayh, he says that I heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that there is a group of people in Qawman, a group of people in Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them until they cannot even expect any more than that. Hatta yamallu. The expression is like they say, it's almost like enough, too much. That's how much they get. And then they realize that there are people above them. That's when they start feeling regret. That is when they realize that how much they're missing out on. They see that the people above them are so much higher. That's what the ayah says. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ أَكْبَرُ دَرَجَاتٍ وَأَكْبَرُ تَفْضِيلًا. Akhirah is bigger in its statuses and bigger in the gaps, tafdeel, the gaps between those statuses. And that tafdeel could be simply for, doing certain recommended acts that we could have done and we didn't do it. they feel so much regret for not being able to be there. Now this is one step above them. They saw some people just above them. Imagine 25 stages above them. For what? Those who are regular in Salatul Jama'ah. If somebody is regular in Salatul Jama'ah, they get 25 stages above the ones who are not participating in Jama'ah and they pray their Furada, Salat Furada. Now if we just think of those stages, nothing else. If that was the only hadith regarding Salatul Jama'ah, wouldn't it make it enough of a reason for us to strive and make, an effort to participate in Salatul Jama'ah? Now you can do it at home. You can do it husband and wife. In fact, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In the initial stage of the Risala, of the mission, according to narrations, in fact, one of them narrated by Al-Abbas. Ibn Abbas narrates from his father that one day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes to the nearness of Kaaba, and behind him his wife Khadija, next to him his adopted son, or his cousin, and the one who was growing in his home, Imam Ali alayhi salam. And they were the only ones praying. This was their jama'ah. If you can make it a bigger jama'ah, by all means. If you can make it to the masjid, because every one that added added has a bigger reward. So if you pray 2 people, every rak'ah equates to 150 salat. 150 salat every rak'ah. 3 people, that number multiplies. Up to 10 people after that, the only one who knows the rewards of it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not even the angels can record it. Not even angels can record the reward of a salat once it gets to that number. You see, when we realize that, then it makes it worth working for, trying. And I say to people, even if you don't get anything out of traveling to an Islamic center or to a masjid, except for Salatul Jama'ah, that suffices. Even if you got nothing else. You don't get to listen to a discussion or lecture. You don't get, the food part. You don't, even if there's nothing except for Salatul Jama'ah. Just to establish Salatul Jama'ah. That is enough. Making sure that one establishes Salatul Jama'ah. 25 stages higher than regular people in Jannah, not here. You speak of social classes here. Nowadays you have the rich, middle class, and I guess the poor. You don't have that many, yeah? Imagine there were hundreds of them, and you were 25 stages above somebody. Let's say there is the average people, those who establish prayers, and 25 stages above them is the one who wouldn't want to do that to achieve that stage or status. This very simple, establish the same salat that we pray, establish it in jama'ah. Wherever possible. At home, that is perfect. If you come to a masjid and get multiple rewards with more and more believers establishing Salatul Jama'ah. Now some of the importance, etiquettes of Salatul Jama'ah, and I will finish my discussion for tonight, and I'll open it for questions and answers, inshallah. One of the very important, in fact, etiquettes of Salatul Jama'ah, and I'm speaking of etiquettes, not rules, is that the ma'mumeen do not raise their voice in Jama'ah. Rules is that they are following, not proceeding, for example. A ma'mum does not do anything before the imam. However, an etiquette or one of the recommendations of Salatul Jama'ah is one does not raise their voice above the voice, or in a way that the imam hears it, or it becomes questionable. Is it the imam who's doing the takbirah or recitation, or someone else? So one has to make sure that their voice is not heard, rather the voice of the imam is the one that's heard. That's one. Another one is regarding the time of adhan and iqama and when you stand up. Some people have that confused a little bit. When the adhan, most people, you stop hearing people when the Allahu Akbar is said, yeah? Or maybe a little bit afterwards. Unfortunately, when we pray Jama'ah, sometimes you hear people up until Allahu Akbar, everything is quiet now. Yeah, that's how it should be? No. The way it should be, the mustahab part, and each of these things add to our accounts, my brothers and sisters. It's significant. We need to learn them and practice them. So one of the etiquettes is that during the adhan and iqamah, people are lined up. Not wait for the, the Allahu Akbar. During the adhan and iqamah. So when the adhan is said, everybody should be in line. Now if you're making wudu, I understand. You waited for the adhan, now you're making wudu. Okay. But if you're in the hall, in the masjid, in the prayer hall, ready to pray, we should not be involved in worldly things while the adhan is on. That is a preparation time for the journey, for the salah. And it's mustahab to be in position of salat. And once the iqamah is said, especially the qad qamat as-salat, you should rise and you should be standing ready for salat. No more. From the beginning of iqamah, one should not be talking anymore. Should be getting ready. And from the time that the qad qamat as-salat, they should be standing ready in the position of the salat. These are some of the mustahabbat of Salatul Jama'ah. There are more mustahabbat, inshallah we'll share them another time. I want to have a time for questions and answers. If anyone has, yes. Yes. Ahsan. So if in the first and second rak'ah the imam recites the Fatiha and another surah, at that time the ma'mum should not recite anything. Either they simply listen, or they can in their mind basically revisit the same ayat and reflect on the ayat as the imam is reciting them. Now the only difference is between in Dhuhr and Asr. When the imam recites quietly, if the ma'mum cannot hear, which is often the case, the imam is reciting whispering in Dhuhr and Asr, so the ma'mum cannot hear it. During those salawat, the ma'mum has the option of very quietly either doing the dhikr, istighfar and dhikr, or reciting quietly, not in a way that they are heard by anybody, quietly reciting or doing dhikr. Some maraja say only dhikr, some say you can also do, if you cannot hear, you can recite quietly. Okay. Yes. Ahsan. So praying jama'ah behind people from other madhahib, as long as they are from a Muslim madhab and they are not from a Nasibi group, you can pray behind them and gain the reward of jama'ah. However, if it's Nasibi, then we cannot pray behind them. Yes. Ahsant. So the person who wants to join the Jama'ah, how do they join? If they first of all they can join any time while the Imam is standing or in ruku'. Afterwards they should wait until the Imam is back standing and then they join. If the Imam is in his last rak'ah, then they can say the takbirah and sit down so that they can join the Jama'ah, and once the Imam finishes they stand up and do their first rak'ah recitation and so on. But besides that they wait, they have to join either in qiyam or ruku'. And when they join, if they join in qiyam of the first or second rak'ah, they don't recite because the Imam is reciting. But if they join in the qiyam of the third or fourth rak'ah of the Imam, then they have to recite quietly their hamd, and if they can also recite the surah. If they have time, they should recite the surah. If not, hamd suffices. And if they join in ruku', they don't have recitation. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Ahsan. Yeah, good point. So there are conditions for Imam al-Jama'ah, the leader of the Jama'ah, and the main thing is that he has to be adil, just. And the adala of Imam al-Jama'ah is not very difficult, okay? The question was, if it's a husband and wife and say the husband does not have the condition of adala, for example, how do they pray? If he doesn't, then they cannot pray Jama'ah, but he should achieve it. Now, adala is not really difficult to achieve, because the simple thing is one has to abstain from sins and do the wajibat. Okay, that's all what it is. And there is one other thing which they say, that he does not do what we call in Arabic khilaf al-muruwa, khilaf al-murawat, breaking promises, for example. It's not haram, he's not committing a sin if he does not fulfill his promise. He constantly, or being always late. Okay, certain things may lead to what we call khilaf al-muruwa, but it's not necessarily a sin. So if that's the case, then they're not adil. Now, it's a good question, because it leads me to mention something which one of my teachers used to say, that if anyone's wife vouches for their justice, that means they're really just, because she knows them. She knows them very well. Now, the opposite is not correct. إثبات الشيء لا ينفي ما عداه. The opposite is not correct. And what I mean is, if one's wife does not believe he's just, doesn't mean that he's not just. Okay? Because she might be upset with him out of a sudden. He's the marja and he's the most just person, but he's not just anymore in her eyes. That's not necessarily the case. But if one's wife believes that he is just, then that is a good sign, because she knows him well. And it's good to achieve that, where one does not commit the haram and maintains his wajibat. Now, what if he does commit a haram? If he commits a haram, he can do tawbah, istighfar and tawbah, but a genuine one. So if he is intending, let's say somebody is in a haram business, okay? He has, let's say, a liquor shop or a store that sells liquor. Okay? So he's in a haram business. Okay, that's fisq. Therefore, he's not adil. Therefore, his wife cannot pray, or as a family, they cannot pray together in jama'ah. So what do they do? Let's say he comes one day and says, you know what, I'm given up. I don't want this business anymore. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. I genuinely regret having done that. He's adil now. Okay, if that's genuine. Okay, but not someone who is, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, and tomorrow I'm going back to the liquor store. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay? So it has to be real tawbah. Then he can achieve the adala again and pray together. Yes. Yeah. Stopping one's prayers, the question is if, so I'll reiterate the question first. If the parents are in Jama'ah and the child is crying and disturbing everybody, what does the parent do? Should they break their salat or should they continue while the child is disturbing everyone's concentration in salat and so on? So to break one's salat, it has to be something that is life-threatening. If a child is crying, he is testing people's concentration in salat. They should concentrate better. That doesn't make it, that doesn't give the parent enough reason to break their salat. If it's going to break people's salat, you could say, okay, now it's a very bad situation, okay? But unless it's that kind of a desperate situation, or child's crying is not just disturbing, is something that leads one to think that there's something wrong, that, okay, maybe the child is choking, or maybe, but the child is whining. Let's say your child next to you is whining. Now, mind you, you can carry the child while in salat, okay? So mothers can hear me, please. If your child is next to you and they're crying, you can carry them while you're in salat. Make sure that you maintain your position towards the qibla, and if they need a bit of touching or carrying, you can do that, okay? But we cannot break our wajib salat. If it's mustahab salat, one should break it or can break it, not to disturb others or something. But a wajib salat cannot be just broken because a child is crying and he may be disturbing some people. It's a good test for their concentration. That's how I look at it normally. Sorry. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, they need training. Yeah. Yeah, in general, yeah. No. We need, I guess, to tell these parents who have children that if you need to carry the baby during salat, please carry them. If they're going to cry throughout the salat and disturb others, please don't join. Okay, you get more rewards for allowing others to. But once they start their salat, unless it's a serious situation, it shouldn't. There's. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it's often that it happens, but in general, it happened actually once somebody and others were very upset. They said to me, how did somebody lost their wudu. Okay, so it happens. Some people are unwell, they have problems, and so they had to leave the line. It doesn't break people's salat as long as the distance is not much. That's why one of the mustahabbat brings me to another mustahab. One of the recommended things regarding jama'ah is to be close. I'm not saying toe on toe. That's not our rules. We don't have that rule that we have to touch each other. But mankibain, the shoulder should be close to the shoulder in general, and they have to be close to each other. Taras as-sufuf, it should be close. Okay, so if somebody leaves the line, one person will not make the connection, basically, one person will not break the connection, okay, unless 2-3 people leave. Even maybe 2 sometimes, if not, they're not far apart, 2 will not even break the connection. But if it's a significant connection, I mean, gap now between the people, then obviously it breaks their connection to Jama'ah. Okay. Yes. No. Yes. If they were not aware of the fact that they were not connected, they can continue, and after what happened is their salat counts as furada. If they are aware, then they have to make the intention of furada and act accordingly. No, they don't break their salat, ahsan. So it turns into furada. If they're aware of it, then they have to recite where they have to recite and do the things. So they change their intention. If they're not aware, it just means it became furada. Ahsan, thank you. Any other question? Yes.
I have a question regarding the last ayah of Surah Yasin that we recited today.
Yes.
Where Allah tells His Prophet, you can only warn those who follow the message.
Yeah.
So there are people that for any reason they don't want to follow the message. So based on what ground some people force others to invite them to do it or forbidding from wrong. And even there are some scholars that say that it takes you to heaven even using force. So does it make sense to you? Do you know based on what ground some people use force for inviting people to do it?
Inviting people to good, and if it means it's not, just to reiterate the question, make sure I understand and others hear it. So the ayah that we recited that says إِنَّمَا تُنذِرُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الذِّكْرَ وَخَشِيَ الرَّحْمَنَ بِالْغَيْبِ فَبَشِّرْهُ بِمَغْفِرَةٍ وَأَجْرٍ كَرِيمٍ, that you can only warn those who follow the dhikr, the remembrance, or the Quran, as one of the meanings of this ayah and this word. And he has fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the merciful God, even when he is alone, even if he's not known, if it's not known that he's sinful, he still is fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then give them the good news, فَبَشِّرْهُ, of the forgiveness and the honorable reward, وَأَجْرٍ كَرِيمٍ. So what happens to those who don't want to follow the dhikr? Can we force them, and or should we force them? You cannot force anybody to believe, and you cannot force anybody to do good unless they want to do it from their own with the right intention, because a salat that is not done out of a good intention is not real salat. Okay, one of the conditions of ibadat is what? The first condition of any ibadah is intention, niyyah. Yeah? You cannot pray without niyyah, can you? What if you force somebody to pray? What niyyah do they have? Can you go in their mind and say, you have to have the niyyah of salat? Will it work? You can't. You cannot. You can force them to do it physically, but you cannot force them to think of it and to have that intention. Okay? So definitely you cannot do that. So what happens to Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar? Okay? And we are told that if somebody sees a munkar, then let them change it with their hand. If not, then with their words. If not, then with their heart. And that is the weakest of faith. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. This is a narration that all sects have narrated. You know, this is a common narration that if you see munkar, you have to change it. Okay. Now, when we are stopping people from committing sins, we are helping them ultimately. Whether we're stopping them physically or verbally or in any other method, or by not allowing them to do it, okay, in terms of not taking away the means through which they can commit sins. Somebody wants to kill someone, so you take their gun away. They have a gun, you take their gun away or their knife away, okay? So you help them. Okay? You are helping them, preventing them from committing a sin. Okay? Somebody wants to harm someone, and you prevent them, you stop them. So you are helping them. That is part of nahi anil munkar. Okay? Sometimes you do it physically, sometimes you do it verbally, sometimes you might do it even with body language, okay? Showing someone that you disapprove of something, with your eyes even. So that is one. Another one is inviting them and reminding them, Amr bil Ma'ruf. Reminding them, you should pray, you should fast. It's the month of Ramadan, you should be fasting. Now you cannot make them have the intention of fasting, and you can probably not allow them to eat in public, okay? And in a Muslim society, a Muslim government will not allow people to eat in public, because these things cause what we call mafsada. It causes harm to the society. It makes the rest of the people commit sins and not pay heed to the wajibat and so on. So you can put rules, as any society, any government, say for instance here in this country, I'm not sure about here. I know for instance when I was in Sydney in Australia, drinking in public was not allowed. Okay, you can drink, but you cannot drink in public. So they discourage drinking. They say it's bad for you, and they do not allow you to drink in public. Okay, they say that's going to cause more. So in certain countries, drinking is not allowed. Selling alcohol is not allowed. Okay, eating in public in the month of Ramadan is not allowed. This is part of the way of making sure the society remains better, cleaner, and so on. Can I force them to have the intention? That is what the ayah is saying. إِنَّمَا تُنذِرُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الذِّكْرِ. If the heart is not clean and they don't want to follow the dhikr, you cannot force them to do it, okay, in that regard. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, reminders and so on, maybe he will follow the dhikr. Maybe he is somebody who will follow. So we will make the effort. We will try to remind them. Maybe they will follow. Maybe they won't. To make someone go to heaven even by force, I guess it's an expression of, I will continue reminding you. Perhaps one day you will wake up and you will be amongst those who ittaba'a dhikr. Okay, like you would do with your children. We are told, for example, that a child who reaches a certain age, then addibuhum ala salat. You have to force them to pray. Okay, 9 or 10 years old, according to some narrations, you have to force them to pray. Okay, later on he will learn to pray and he will love to pray. A teenager may not understand prayers, and therefore they may not be keen to pray. So you have to keep on reminding them, rewarding them, punishing them. Okay, taking their certain privileges away so that they will pray. Okay. Until they get into the habit, later on they understand it, and it doesn't mean that they're not following dhikr. They are in some sort of absent mindedness, ghafla, of temporary ghafla, not a complete ghafla. And so you can wake them up and perhaps bring them back. I hope that answers the question. Okay, I think that was the last question. Yes. For no, I'm not. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely a munkar. I mean, drinking is munkar. Or should we stop it? Yeah. 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 If that. Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. So there's two different things now you used. Drinking is one thing, hijab is another thing. Okay, I'll tell you why. And I'll come to both of them, and that'll be the last discussion. So when it comes to drinking, a Muslim society, a Muslim government may choose to ban drinking publicly, okay, because that is something that creates mischief, okay, and it encourages others and so on. Even non-Muslim countries have done that, okay. So, بطريقة أولى, it's more suitable for a Muslim society to say, no, we do not allow drinking. Now, can you go into people's homes and search if they're drinking and stop them from drinking? That is not something that Islam allows. Okay, I don't believe that Islam will allow that. And maybe some countries did do some excessive searching and so on. It's not allowed. Hijab, enforcing some level of modesty is something any civilization and any society would deem as appropriate, okay? What level of modesty, it depends on that society. For example, and I've shared this example many times, in certain cities, in many cities around the world, for example, even those who don't have hijab, don't have Islam, I'm talking about the Western world, walking around topless, for example, is not allowed. In some, woman being topless is not allowed. Okay, they say, okay, you want to go to a nude beach, go to a nude beach, but you cannot be topless. Or even men, okay? In certain areas, central business district, CBD of Sydney, I know that because I lived there. Women during business hours had to have certain attire. If they were wearing provocative clothing, police would stop them. Police would stop them and say, you're not allowed. You cannot be like this. They could take them, okay? So societies realize that certain things lead to mischief, and this is not how things should be, and so they have some sort of regulations. So what level of modesty you can implement, that would depend on the environment and the society and so on. Is it done excessively in some areas? Perhaps it is. Okay, I know where the question is from. Perhaps if an environment had a certain level of lack of hijab, for example, and there were few who were completely, they were very immodest. The better way would have been, okay, immodesty is not allowed, and leave it at that. Okay, so the society accepts it. And the way we look at it is how the Prophet ﷺ introduced rules. Okay, when he came to Medina, he started introducing rules. People gave him allegiance that you will be our leader, and he started introducing rules. It was not abrupt in a way that the society felt that everything is compulsion, and we are compelled to do things, and they had to react in the opposite way. Okay, which happened in many countries. Okay, it was not that way. Rather, slowly introducing certain rules. Certain, even with alcohol, it was banned in 3 stages. Yes, it wasn't banned in an immediate thing. Initially, it was You know, it has benefits, it has harms, but the harm outweighs the benefit. Later on, don't come to prayers while intoxicated. لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. Eventually, رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. Okay, that's it. Banned, full stop. Other things, the same. The Prophet ﷺ dealt with it gradually and systematically, including issues like slavery and so on. So any abrupt method of any government or the authority will create a negative reaction. And this is, I think, what you're referring to. And I agree that, in certain cities, for example, everyone's wearing hijab, but some people, or everyone's wearing abaya, for example, aba or chador, and some people wear scarves, okay? Now, in that city, perhaps a non-hijabi would be more like saying I'm, inviting people towards sins or very immodest. Maybe in that city you can implement that level of you have to have something on your head. In another city, everybody's wearing simple scarves over their heads. Some of them are not. And one goes out with short skirt. Okay, then they can come and say, you know what, this is not allowed here. This is immodest. So it's all relative to which area. No, the rules of the implementation of certain. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Islam always speaks of urf. Okay? Yeah. 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 Now, if you're speaking, yeah. No, it does not. And I agree with you 100%. And the sad part is some women think that now that I'm in a different country, in my country maybe I wear abaya, here I can wear tight clothes. That's not Islamic, definitely. Okay, just put a scarf on your head and now I'm wearing hijab. This is not Islam. Okay, hijab is hijab, whether you're in your country or in America, wherever you are. Okay, wearing a scarf and something loose over the body that does not show the shape of the body. Okay, so that I'm 100% with you. Islam does not change in that regard. Hijab is hijab, whether you're in the moon or on earth, wherever you are. But what does change is certain implementation of what an Islamic authority or government can, certain levels of implementation and certain expectations. For instance, when it comes to modesty, okay, what level of modesty can we implement? Okay, so and these are my suggestions. It's not black and white. What I'm saying is, and it is not applicable here, but let's say we have a lot of migrants come to a specific city here in America, like the Mormons did or some, and we make an area, this is an Islamic area, okay? So now we want to implement Islamic law, okay? So let's say some people want to do that, okay? Now, can they out of a sudden say, you know what, nobody can come here unless they're wearing hijab? Do you think that's practical? And it's a city where everybody is free and wearing anything they want. Okay, I'll give you an example. There were some hardliners early on when I grew up partially in Lebanon. They had some area that all Muslims, all Shia mostly from, the south and some from the Beqa and so on. And some hardliners said, we want to implement Islamic law here. Okay? So any woman without the hijab, we're going to stop her, we're going to do. And others said to them, which Islamic law tells you that you can do that? Okay? You can say, okay, we will not allow immodesty, anything that's provocative, anything that's going to lead to mischief. You can do that. Under Islamic law, you can do that. Okay? But just to say, no, everyone has to wear hijab, no. That's definitely not what Islam will allow. Now, what I'm saying at different levels is, in some areas, in some cities that everybody's wearing abaya, okay, for example, in Najaf, okay, everybody's wearing abaya and so on, they could say if somebody does not wear proper hijab there, okay, maybe not the abaya, but proper hijab, that'll be more of creating mischief and provocative behavior and so on. Under that, they may apply certain rules there. And that's what I'm saying in terms of the difference between different regions based on what the urf and the general practice is. Okay. Have I read I have not read narrations in that regard, no. To stop them and tell them to wear better, or to stop them and mistreat them or something? Yes, definitely there are narrations in that regard, yes. Quran says to him, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Quran says to him directly, tell the believing woman. Okay, so we have to do it. This is part of Amr al-Ma'ruf. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Tell the believing woman that they have to wear this and so on. Quran is very clear on that. So, yeah. So not just the definition of hijab is one thing. The other is tell them. So he has to tell people. He has to remind people. Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar is part of our faith. We cannot do without it.
So why, when the Prophet was impoverished,
Yeah.
Imam Ali alayhi salam was impoverished,
Yeah.
I have never heard that they enforce such a rule in the society that women have to wear a scarf or have a hijab or something like that.
Perhaps they already were. Perhaps they didn't have to deal with it, because whatever he would tell people, they would do it. Generally speaking, when at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people would just adhere to the rules. Okay, so قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ, to the rest of the ayah. So the Prophet would tell them, and they would adhere that this is now because he was the lawmaker, he was the government basically, and he's telling them this is what you should do, and so they perhaps followed. If they didn't follow, how did he deal with it? We don't have necessarily things that he treated them with certain punishments and whatever. We don't have that in terms. Lashing and things like that are for people who commit sins, people who do, commit perhaps adultery or something, or someone who is trying to create mischief or something. We have narrations about that. But inshallah, that is a longer discussion another time, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Let's remember all marhumin with al-Fatiha ma'a salat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.